Thank you, Margaret, for joining in the Zoom call. Today, I want you to start with introducing yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Margaret Haven. I was born in New York, but grew up in Savannah, Georgia. And I always had a love for science. I I remember when I had my little change, I would run down to the store and buy a magnifying glass. So I always had a love for science, and I was encouraged to some degree with my mother. She never said no on science. For projects, she worked towards me finishing that project. So I always had a love for fixing things, science, analytical type information.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about how did you get into the hair industry?
Mm. That was a little bit by error, I guess. Like I said, I always loved science, and the only thing I did in beauty when I was coming through high school was my middle sister was really instrumental in about fashion and design. But beyond that, no, I looked for a job, and you know how you think you're supposed to be going one direction, God had another plan.
Yeah.
Well, I majored in food science and technology, so I thought I was going to work with food companies.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to this place and I went back home. I was trying to find a job. You know, you always go back home. I went back home, knocked on every little door in that area, Savannah area. They said, well, we have a project. It's not ready right now, but we will probably need you. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I moved back up to Atlanta. And believe it or not, 2.5 years later, they called me. It was a company called Dark and Lovely. We were part of the No Lie Relaxer. So that was my experience and exposure working directly with hair. Being a small company, you do everything salon division, making product, quality control. So that really piqued my interest. Even though I majored in food per se, food science and technology, the jobs they had were up in a cold region. I didn't want to go cold. And I did get the opportunity to work with a food company. I said, you know what, I like this hair thing better. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my first start in the hair care.
Okay. Thank you. So I wanted to talk about what is your, well, what do you think about then and now people are more into natural and how, what's your approach on the holistic approach on hair, from what it used to be then and what it is now also.
Okay. People say we just started with natural. Really, we were born with natural, and we had comb press hair. And again, my middle sister, because of her hair length and her style,
Mm-hmm.
they used her as a model for the when the relaxer came out, when the Johnson products came out. And that's about all that, I got involved with the hair industry per se or like for it. But when I got into it, the research, it was like a beginning. You starting out with a project and you're working it all the way through. The difference I see then was a lot of comb press. Even though my older sister hair, you really didn't need a comb press. It's what you would call what you call
Mm-hmm.
shampoo and go, wash and go. Her
Yeah.
hair was more the wash and go style. And my hair was basically comb pressed, but I could never hold it because I was so active, I would sweat it out. The
Mm-hmm.
difference in the industry, what I see now, was that people took care of their hair. There weren't that many terminology. Now, that's what the natural movement brought out. Different terminology. That's why I got back into the industry. But terms that you say, I'm trying to figure out what exactly do they mean? How can I relate that in a cosmetic way? The holistic term, I remember that like, I was getting ready to go to grad school in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking about holistic then or natural, because that came out more so in the 70s. And how they spelled it then was spelled with the WH, not with like spiritual. As you can see, you would see it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really what you would eat, because really before people just ate, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't really pay attention too much to um, what they were eating previously. And then you start getting different. In the movement, the 60s started doing a little bit of that, and it's kind of spurred out into the 70s. But it is true. What you eat is who you are. Your lifestyle is who you are. When I was at Ohio State University, one of my instructors, and I wish I could remember her name, she taught diet therapy. And she talked about lifestyle. And that's true. How you live is going to affect you because that's how your nutrients get into your system. So I believe, strongly believe there's truth in it. It's just that there's so many people have their own input that you really got to figure out exactly what is it that they mean by it.
Mm-hmm.
And what foods are you really eating? The food process has changed. I know there were a couple of ladies who talked about that, Beatrice Trim Hunter and Adele Davis. They have books out now, and they talked about how the nutrients, how it absorbed into your system, and how they would kill the cattle, and how they would do it then and before I should say, and now. So I truly believe it has what you do as far as the heat. Too much heat in the hair. We used to burn hair, but no one thought anything of it, you know. And the process and the application of a product, all that ties into it. So again, I said grew up natural, and basically in college, the first year was comb press. I remember I came back home and told my brother was a good lady on campus who had an afro, and she looked good. And he said, "Well, why don't you wear one? If your brother said, what you gonna do? You gonna wear one?"
But you look good with natural hair right now.
Thank you. So you really want, and I always promoted health. So you really want to make product and processes and procedures that emulate healthy practices. Because see, that was a whole different. I grew up in the term when you didn't eat in the beauty salon. You didn't really talk in the beauty salon. Madam Myers in Savannah, Georgia, or right off of West Broad Street, y'all call Martin Luther King now. We had a school, and I emulated her. I said, "Well, I grew up, I'm gonna be just like her." And so it was a very professional field. Yeah, so certain things that you did not do. It was no stress and drama, basically, in the beauty shops. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I talked about that too, how stress can affect your hair
Mm-hmm.
also, you know. And I also think about the quality of the product too, how they work hand in hand too. What is your take on that?
Okay. Whoa. How long do we have?
So about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
Like the audience is more clients, consumer,
And,
stylish
mhm,
client who come to the shop or
mhm.
people who are natural. So you're talking to that audience, not the professional one.
Okay. Okay. But they should know a little bit of what's going on. Okay. Yeah. The it's a practice. It's a procedure. It's a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a how you going to um, utilize certain product. But I do have to touch on the industry to some degree
Mm-hmm.
because and let people know if first of all the industry you need good suppliers,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of my takes that when I started in the industry. You want to make sure that where you buying the glycerin, propylene glycol, whatever, they are good suppliers. They are approved vendors. You want to make sure when you're mixing it, you have the right procedure and you're doing it the same way every time. Just like egg, sugar, flour, they all make a cake, but you don't make an angel food cake the same way you make a pound cake. It's a difference in it. So it's a big industry. I know a lot of people became very successful with it, but you really need to focus on, I believe, on caring of what you're producing and producing the same thing every time. And see, this is where some of the things that happen with the YouTube, when they say, I pour a little bit of this and I pour a little bit of that in it. Well, can you duplicate that same recipe each time? And it shouldn't be a recipe technically, it should be become a formula. And that's a whole procedure. So some people got in it because of the love of it. just like anything else. This is what they wanted to do. And some people got in it because of it's a good money maker. But you really want to make sure that whether you're using it correctly. Because some people, they may read the instructions. You know, we all guilty of this. We want to do it our way. And I think that's what happened with the relaxer when they took it out of the hands of a professional and everybody started putting the relaxer on it, on their hair. They would say, well, they will use it every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that wasn't it. Same thing you could do with the product that you use it for natural hair. So it's it takes if somebody really want to get into the field or someone want to make sure they're getting their hair done right. It really takes a professional like you who really care because you're doing this video. You're taking your time out and trying to, and to focus that. It is a system. It is concerned being involved. It's not just throwing something on top of your hair and saying, look at the end results. But long term, it may ruin you. Just like you say when you twist the hair. Some people twist their hair and roll the hair wrong. I watch your video. I watch not only you, I watch other people's video to see what they are doing. And if you're really involved in it, I believe that's the step that you should take to make sure that you're doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I've been doing it this way for so many years. Yeah, but it may be wrong. And make sure you go into not because that style is the cheapest. Making sure you go into a stylist as a consumer who's really have your health at heart. You know, they really want to make sure that they're using the right product. A lot of people like to mix up certain things. And do you know if that's really right to do? So you need to get involved as a professional. They need to get involved when they're buying the product as a consumer. They need to put that pressure on that professional. So they become involved.
Yeah. You mentioned about a lot of people making their own product, and there's so many
Yes.
products out there that, people like, it was a lot, people talked about staying away from certain chemical and
Yeah.
using certain natural product. But I realize sometimes also with that, I have a lot of clients who have certain food allergy.
Mhm.
They're also allergic to the natural product. So my personal take on is not just not paying attention, just go all the way natural,
Mhm.
but also figure it out what are you allergic to, because it might be natural and you might be allergic to that natural product, which can also affect your hair. So what is your take on
Yeah. You
that?
hit the nail on the head right there. Just because it's natural doesn't mean that it's good. I said my grandma said she was allergic to strawberries, but you would never know it when she goes to the restaurant. You eat strawberry here and there. But a lot of natural ingredients have some effect. Mercury, iron, they're natural. Okay. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I got back into the industry because they were saying a lot of things that were erroneous. Petroleum, which you know is petroleum jelly, that is natural. It comes from the ground because crude oil has refined. Now, you may not like something about it and say that, but
Mm,
certain things are natural. You have an allergy to it. Some people are allergic to grass, some sunlight, so you don't knock these things out of your industry. You just say, well, what is, like you said, am I allergic to? And
mm,
it tickles me when somebody says, I'm allergic to so and so. I said, how do you know if all the ingredients in this product? Why did you pick this particular item? So when you do that, then it goes back and forth. So in the scientist's view, the people look at them and say, they don't know what they're talking about. So
mm,
when you look at it, you got to look at it analytical. You got to do some, if you choose, you don't have to, but if you choose to, you say, well, what do I think that is causing the effect? And this way you go step up and get a professional and try to figure it out. Now, some people take the allergy test and you could go that further, but certain ingredients are not as harmful as people made them to be harmful. Okay. Um, then certain things they say I don't want a preservative in it. Now we know we don't have all day to talk about that because that's one of my pet peeves. Um, so it's certain, then you have to trust the person who did the research, and the person who's doing the research need to trust what they read. One thing about Google now, I have to, not the Google, just the internet. One thing about the internet, it gives you a lot of information. And some people say, well, how do I know it's the right one? Sometimes you can read through it, then you see where the source, where it's coming from.
Mhm.
If they say, well, 66% of the people, that could mean maybe they just did one test. And
Mhm.
out of three people, two people, that's 66%. So you got to read if you're serious about it now. If you're serious about this, then you got to read and make sure. But a lot of people would say something about, I know they didn't like propylene glycol because they said it was in the family of for the antifreeze. But some things could be in a certain family, that's true, but doesn't mean that, no, they didn't say the family, they said it because it's antifreeze. Doesn't mean that it's bad. For example, glycerin.
Mhm.
Okay, everybody familiar with glycerin. I had good and bad on that. Then we get nitrogen, right? We heard of nitrogen. By
Mhm.
themselves, they're okay. But when they get together, they become very explosive, okay? Nitroglycerin. They don't come stable. So you have to, it's more to it than just picking on something and saying, I don't like this particular item. So like people say, well, I don't like the resins that gives me buildup on the hair. But all depends. And the one that you're really picking on is polymer JR400 quaternium 10, polyquaternium 10. Um, but it all depends. Because at the same time, they say they like this particular item,
Mhm.
but it's in another product, but it doesn't have this, it's not in the same media.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit more involved. I mean, I like the input. I like what they say. I hear what they're saying. I'm
Mhm.
trying to analyze it. Why are you saying that? And
Mhm.
try to figure it out. But they come off and say, just make a blank thing. If you can't pronounce it, then you, what this thing is, if you can't pronounce it,
They know you can't put it on your body. Oh, you
you know
can't.
what? Sometimes I'm like, what, really? Do me a favor, just pick up a biology book, any biology book, and look at the components that's in your body, the blood screen. Start naming some of those things. You can't pronounce it. I mean, you can, but it's hard to pronounce. So that means that it's bad? No. It means that it is what it is. And
Mhm.
there's some things you can't pronounce, like mercury. So me, I can pronounce mercury. So that means that mercury is good for me because I could do it. I don't want mercury on me. Stop taking them out of thermometers. When we were little, we used to have them in thermometers. But anyhow,
So,
so
to kind of reiterate it for the audience, um, if I hear you correctly,
uh-huh.
it's a little complex when it comes to natural product versus some product that are not 100% natural. And it's about really get with a professional who cares about the health of your hair, or a product who cares about the health of your hair, and
Mhm.
working together to really find something that works for your personal hair.
You
Because
said
un- unless you want to do the research, unless you're willing to really dive into it,
hmm
it's no one answer. It's
No, it's still young. You're right. It's still young. I call it still young. You need people from all different parts. See,
Mhm,
sometimes the scientist doesn't come off the bench. They just keep on mixing stuff at the lab. And
mhm,
then you get the cosmetologist, the beautician, the loctician. They don't want to come off and talk to the scientist. But we need to meet and we
mhm,
need to unify. And
mhm,
that's why when you ask me to do that, I say yes. And also, I'm with Atlanta Natural Hair Care Association, rather, Natural Hair Care Pro. And then because you listen to it, because you're seeing something. Now,
mhm,
scientifically, we may not call it that, but
mhm,
you see something. Somebody sees something, professional sees something. And then now it's for us not to knock it, it's to try to find out what is it they seen and why are they saying that.
mhm,
And let's see if we could pull it all together. Because both of us, all areas made mistakes, and that's okay. Because you learn from your mistakes. Okay. So yeah, I believe a truly a meshing of the mind to
mhm,
see what will help benefit. And then you get the marketing people. I can't make my marketing jokes, okay? But we
mhm,
got the marketing people who would take it to a new light, but they can take it carefully to a new light and take it and make you and see what they're talking about.
mhm,
But the thing is, the truth of the matter, if you're in it for real, for seriousness, and you try to figure out, well, what is it they seeing that's causing this reaction?
Mm-hmm.
And then we will sit down and we mesh. And that has happened with certain companies I have worked with. So
Thank you for your input on it. It was
yeah.
good. And tell us a little about what are you currently doing you that you wanted to share,
Okay,
how
yeah.
they can keep in touch with you. And I'm also gonna write it in a note.
Okay, yeah. Currently, well, I got out of the industry for a minute. I was teaching, working with computers, etc. But I got back in really because a couple of things that people said. Yeah, when I heard about the thing about no preservative, that really made me come back into the industry. And when they were saying something about the co-wash, the interpretation, I heard many interpretations of it. So I started getting back into the industry. People asked me to make product. I've made product before for other companies out here. So I do a little bit of if you want it, but there is a process.
Mm-hmm.
It is to or do a pro. It takes 18 months to 2 years to really get a product out. And if you already know your line and what you want to do, it's something different. So I do a little bit of that. But basically, I'm trying to educate because I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of companies and learn different aspects of the business. That is from manufacturing to laboratory, quality control, quality assurance, as a research and development, the manufacturing, helping people out with laboratories, helping them. So you can pass it on to second generation. When I was growing up, this is what people of my um, background did. A lot of people were in the beauty industry, one form of fashion. They either did hair or they had their own little mixing up, formulation, and then they selling that. So you can make a business out. In other words, you can pass it on to second generation. Or they were jobbers selling the product out of the car. So I educate on different aspects of the business and coming out with a product line. So now what we're doing, we're trying to find another way we can meet more people and through the media like this and conferences and workshops, membership. That's what we're doing as far as the drive. And it's still because it's still alive. Industry is still alive.
Yeah.
And
Okay. And I will type your information
okay.
underneath your email where they could contact you. But thank you for
Yes.
chiming in on this approach on this holistic approach on natural hair, and thank you for making time out of your busy schedule.
Okay. See you, Gigi.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.